Welcome to Politics for Patriots. Here's your host, the eviscerator of progressive nonsense, the executioner of imbecility, and the grim reaper of BS, Eddie Zipper.
Welcome to the post-midterm election edition of the Politics for Patriots podcast. Please subscribe on iTunes and never miss an episode. I'm keeping it short today, but I have compiled some absolutely mind-blowing information for you. Also, I have a giveaway today, so stay tuned for that. Oh, also, big shout out to Dan Bongino. I got to go on his NRA TV show, We Stand, yesterday to do some political analysis on Election Day. It was a very cool experience. Absolutely awesome. I love Dan. He's a great guy. So if you want to watch that, go to nratv.com and find We Stand. They always have it right there on the front page, so it shouldn't be hard to find. On to the election. Did anybody else think it was weird that Russia decided only to hack the Senate elections last night? Yodely-doddly-hoddly-ho! I mean, when Democrats win elections, it's just free and fair elections, but when Republicans win elections, it is Russian meddling and collusion. So I thought it was weird to see a split election like the one we had last night. Alright, now I don't like to toot my own horn, but a few episodes back, I went through the Senate toss-up seats one by one, and every single race I called correctly, presuming that the final ones shake out the way they look right now, which I think that they will. Like I said, Republicans are going to end up with 55 seats in the Senate, so I was right about that. And I want you to know that I picked the most humble-sounding trumpet music that I possibly could for that. I made a couple of solid picks in the House. I'm not going to lie, Democrats outperformed my predictions last night. That's okay. My main prediction was that not enough people would be stupid enough to vote against the economic prosperity we've seen in the last 2 years. But I guess I was wrong, and some people did feel like it was a good idea to vote against that. Both sides told us that we just had to accept 2% growth. That's all the United States is good for anymore. Last 2 quarters, we were over 3% and 4% growth. Last time the unemployment rate was this low, the Beatles were still together. Wages are up, taxes are down, economic growth is up, the stock market is up.
Bowling averages are way up, mini golf scores are way down.
So I am not going to sit here today and rehash all the echo chamber lines you've been hearing in the mainstream media about the election all day long. All the pundits come on and they say the same thing. I'm not going to rehash all that. I'm going to try to give a different perspective on some of this that I think is really interesting. There was no blue wave. They told us that blue wave was going to be huge. It was going to sweep Democrats into the House, sweep Democrats into the Senate. That did not happen. Republicans gained several seats in the Senate. It's still too early to tell how many, but it could be as many as 55, and I think it probably will be 55. Democrats gained seats in the House. At this point, it looks like they're going to max out at about 34 seats. So a 34-seat pickup, that's pretty good. I think that will leave them with a majority of, do the math real quick in my head, 229 to 206. I'm pretty sure about 229 to 206. I am not too impressed by that. It is hard to hold the trifecta of power in Washington, D.C. for very long. Rarely does any party hold it for more than 2 years. The GOP actually did stunningly well in this election. It looks like they didn't because Democrats took back the House, but really, if you look historically at these midterm elections, the GOP did stunningly well last night. Even the pundits on CNN and MSNBC, they were beside themselves. They were all bummed out because they really thought that blue wave was going to happen. They thought Democrats were going to win 60 seats, and then they were going to win all those Senate seats, and they were going to... None of that happened, even though it's been promised for almost 2 years now. All right, so we were promised a blue wave. As I said many times on this show, there wouldn't be. There was no blue wave. There was a blue swirl. And you know what a blue swirl is. That's like when you put one of those little cleaning pucks in the back of your toilet tank. That's how you make your own blue swirl at home. And that is a long toilet flushing sound effect. I'm sorry about that. All right, so we had a blue swirl election last night. I want you to take a moment to think about what this election says, not about Trump, not about the parties, not about the House or the Senate or how business is going to go in Washington. I don't want you to think about any of that. I want you to think about what this election says about the mainstream media. They told us for 2 years that Trump was a hybrid of the devil and Super Hitler. They told us America was going to be a fascist dictatorship any minute now. They told us that every single Republican is a racist, xenophobic, Islamophobic, anti-women deplorable. They told us we had to vote Democrat to save our country and the Constitution. They told us for 2 years that everything Trump did was the end of democracy. It was 24/7 Dempocalypse narratives in the mainstream media. They threw out even the pretense of fairness. They threw out balance by using anti-Trump Republicans as a legit conservative viewpoint. They groupthink, they smeared, they ran with false stories, they pushed a collusion narrative that the president worked together with Russia to hijack the White House. And after all of that, they flipped a few House seats and lost a handful of Senate seats. They're probably going to pick up 34 seats. Okay, just to give you some perspective, the Republicans picked up 63 House seats and 6 Senate seats in the 2010 red wave election. That is what a wave election looks like. Obama was destroyed in that 2010 midterm. That is not at all what happened to President Trump last night. All right, another example. In 2006, there was a blue wave. That was the midterm of President George W. Bush's second term. All right, the Democrats in that one picked up 31 seats and 6 Senate seats. All right, go back even further. In 1994, Republicans, another red wave, picked up 54 House seats and 9 Senate seats. Okay, this year it looks like Democrats will pick up 34 House seats and lose 4 Senate seats. That is astounding, considering Democrats running in this election had an unbelievable money advantage. No matter what Democrats say, last night was somewhat of a disaster for them. Now, I assume Jeff Sessions will soon be out as Attorney General. Finally, when that happens, President Trump will have an easy time getting a new Attorney General confirmed. It's going to be easier to confirm federal judges. If another Supreme Court seat opens up, President Trump can easily get Amy Coney Barrett confirmed or anyone else he chooses. None of those things require anything from the House of Representatives. Remember the clause in the Constitution on nomination. He shall nominate and by and with the advice and consent of the Senate, shall appoint. It's just the Senate. The House doesn't play into that, so we can keep putting judges on the courts, conservative, Constitution-loving judges on all the federal courts. That is a huge win. All right, they don't need the House for any appointments. The one exception, the only exception to this is appointing a new vice president, but I don't think Vice President Pence is going anywhere, so President Trump's not going to need to appoint and have confirmed a new vice president. That would require confirmation from the House and Senate, but that's not happening, so forget I even mentioned it. But here's what really interests me today, and this is juicy. This is good stuff. Oh, I've been waiting to say this. Democrats have a majority in the House, but it looks like it will be a pretty narrow majority. 229 to 206, I believe I said. That's like the 538 forecast. So it's going to be 229 to 206 when all these votes are counted. Well, congratulations, Democrats, on taking back the House of Representatives, but I have some very, very troubling news for you. I feel bad, but I really relish this news. This is just the best. I can't help it. Things are about to get very, very interesting on the Democratic side of the aisle. So here's the news. The strategy of running against Nancy Pelosi worked fantastically in the toss-up districts. Of the seats that Democrats have picked up so far, as of right now, as of right this second, they have officially picked up 27 seats. They're going to pick up a few more. Right now, they've picked up 27. Of those 27 brand new Democrat representatives, 19 refused to endorse Nancy Pelosi for Speaker during their campaign. Of those 19 who refused to endorse Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, 8 of them explicitly promised not to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. Now, 11 Democrat incumbents also said that they would not support Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. Total, that means that there are now 19 House Democrats who have explicitly promised during this election not to vote for Nancy Pelosi for Speaker. This was how they got elected. Was by promise. They ran against the National Democratic brand. This was how they got elected. Was by promising not to support Nancy Pelosi. And it is deliciously ironic because Nancy Pelosi raised all those mega millions that got them elected. Either way, 19 have explicitly promised not to support Nancy Pelosi. And there may be more coming, but for now, let's say 19. Let's give the Democrats the benefit of the doubt and say the rest of the people elected to the rest of the seats are going to support Nancy Pelosi. That's not a fact, but let's just go with 19. All right, so now we have 19 who explicitly promised not to support Nancy Pelosi. I put all their names on Twitter. I'm not going to go through all their names on the show because it's just like name reading. It's kind of pointless. But we are going to hold them accountable. Go to my Twitter. Check out the names. Retweet the names. My Twitter is @EddieZipper. All right, now, because there are 19 people who explicitly say, 19 Democrats who explicitly say they will not support Nancy Pelosi, that means if the Democrats end up with less than 237 seats, which they are definitely going to end up with less than 237, when they end up with less than 237, either representatives are going to have to break their promises. They are going to have to break an explicit promise that just got them elected. Right off the bat, they're promise breaking. Or Nancy Pelosi isn't going to be Speaker of the House. Now, I know that comes as a shock because all morning on the news, everyone is saying, well, the new Speaker of the House will be Nancy Pelosi. Whoa. Not so fast. It's like, hey, everybody who's about to be Speaker of the House, take a step forward. Not so fast, Nancy. If I assume that these people are not liars, and I know that they are Democrats and politicians, so that's a pretty dumb assumption. But if I assume that they are not liars, saying anything just to get elected, that means that Nancy Pelosi does not have 218 votes needed to become Speaker of the House. And there are lots more representatives who ran who didn't promise not to support Pelosi, but they said things like, I'm going to pick whoever best represents the people of Iowa or Texas or whatever state they're from. I cannot imagine anyone anywhere thinks that out-of-touch San Francisco millionaire Nancy Crumbs Pelosi fantastically represents the people of Iowa or any Midwestern state or any Southern state. I mean, remember this?
Crumbs.
Crumbs. And of course, I simply cannot play that without thinking of another out-of-touch California millionaire, Nancy Pelosi's separated at birth twin sister, Lucille Bluth. How Nancy Pelosi is this?
I mean, it's one banana, Michael. What could it cost? $10?
I've used that drop on the show like 100 times, but I just think it's the most hilarious thing. That is so Nancy Pelosi. It's one banana. What could it cost? $10? So all morning on the 24-hour news stations, they've been taking for granted that Nancy Pelosi will be Speaker, but the numbers disagree. Pelosi needed to win a lot more seats in order to be able to secure 218 votes. Maybe some Republicans will vote for her.
Good one.
Right? That is so not happening. Remember now, all 435 representatives get to vote in the speaker contest. It is not like being the majority leader or the minority leader where you are only voted on within the party. Republicans have a say in who becomes speaker. And it looks like the Republican votes might matter. If you have a more moderate Democrat like Tim Ryan from Ohio in the mix, now look at last time. Last time when Tim Ryan ran against Nancy Pelosi for minority leader, Republicans didn't get to vote on that, right? Because that's a party leadership position. It's not Speaker of the House, which everybody votes on. But when Tim Ryan ran against her for minority leader, 63 Democrats voted for Tim Ryan. That's a pretty big number. That's pretty good. So if Tim Ryan could get as many Democrats on board as possible, Republicans could give him the rest of the votes he needs and save the country from Nancy Pelosi. That would be amazing. It might just rein in a new era of bipartisanship in Washington. Can you imagine if Republicans helped choose the Democrat speaker? And that might have to be how it goes down because the majority isn't going to be big enough for anybody to get the vote. Maybe Tim Ryan can get the votes. I can tell you, based on campaign promises, Nancy Pelosi can't get the votes. Oh boy, if she does, I'm going to call those liars out on Twitter so hard for lying during their campaigns. I have all their names written down and their exact quote on how they wouldn't support Nancy Pelosi. So I am ready for them to break their promise. Another interesting thing to remember about the Speaker of the House position is that the person who holds it does not have to be a representative. The representatives can choose basically anyone they want to be Speaker of the House, as long as it is not someone with a job in another branch of government. I mean, they could choose Obama to be Speaker of the House if they wanted to. God, I should be careful about giving them ideas like that. How terrible would that be? Oh, God. You'd be longing for the days of Nancy Pelosi. Just everyone forget I said any. Don't tell any of your Democrat friends that Obama idea. I don't want anybody running with that. All right. Now, when you look at all of this, it is possible that Democrats would have been better off losing the House because so many of these new representatives ran against the status quo of House Democratic leadership. Democrats are going to end up with a civil war between the far left and the more moderate Democrats, whose numbers are now growing. And can you guess why? Because that is the only way to get elected in a toss-up district. These people running in toss-up districts, they didn't say, I'm going to support Nancy Pelosi for Speaker, and by the way, let's abolish ICE and let's open up the borders. They didn't run on that because they wanted to win. And that's the only way that the Democrats can win in these toss-up areas is by wearing their moderate costume. Just like former Senators Joe Donnelly and Claire McCaskill. Oh, that felt good. Former Senators Joe Donnelly and Claire McCaskill tried to put on their moderate costumes. They dressed up for the last couple weeks of the election. Desperate. But they still lost. But a lot of these Democrats who won their House seats, they put on moderate costumes and they won because they didn't just prove that they are part of the far left. McCaskill and Donnelly did prove that they were part of the far left because they were complicit in what happened to Brett Kavanaugh, which story after story comes out that there were made-up accusations. What a surprise. I'm still mad about it. But anyway, that's not what we're talking about. Let's move along. All right, what was I talking about? So we could be in for a civil war. Watch for that. It is going to be fun to watch. It is going to be interesting. It is really going to test the Democratic Party, and you're going to have CNN and MSNBC trying to choose sides. Get the popcorn ready. All right, this is an aside, but it leads into the giveaway. Remember, I told you at the beginning of the show there was going to be a giveaway, so this is going to lead into the giveaway. Now, the Speaker of the House is the most politically destructive job you can possibly have. And I think that Paul Ryan has been thoroughly politically destroyed by it, at least on a national level. I don't know if he thinks he's going to pop back up on the scene and run for president at some point, but that would be a very tough hill for him to climb. The reason it is a politically destructive job is that you have to get the moderates on board with the party hardliners, which means by nature you have to be a facilitator of compromise. That is what the job is. You have to create compromises within your own party. Sometimes you have to get folks from the other party on board. Simultaneously, the president has the veto power, so you have to compromise to get him on board, or else he's just going to veto whatever you're doing to begin with. That's why everyone always ends up hating the Speaker of the House. It is a position that is something of a career killer. Look what it did to John Boehner and how people felt about him from every side by the end of his speakership. Same thing with Paul Ryan. This is always going to happen. I think on the national level, Paul Ryan is pretty much finished. In fact, only one Speaker of the House has ever gone on to become President of the United States in all of American history. If you are the first to email me the name of that president, I am going to send you a copy of one of my favorite books of all time. It is called Destiny of the Republic. It is by a fantastic writer named Candace Millard. It is an amazing book. It's a biography of James Garfield, but it mostly focuses on the months between the time that Garfield is shot and his actual death. And it is an absolutely fantastic read. So the first person to email me the name of the Speaker of the House, the one and only Speaker of the House, who became President of the United States, my email address is patriots@eddiezipper.com. That's patriots at EDDIEZIPPERER.com. All right, I'm going to leave it there today. But thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe on iTunes and never miss an episode of Politics for Patriots. There are new episodes every single Wednesday and Saturday. And that's it for this one. I'm out of here.
Yodeldly-doddly-hodly-ho!
You just listened to Politics for Patriots with Eddie Zipper. Email the show at patriots@eddiezipper.com and please subscribe.